So, you want to learn Chinese, Japanese, or Korean. They certainly sound intimidating. Chinese, Japanese, and Korean are often ranked as among the world's most difficult languages to learn. But what if I told you that there exists an effective approach to learning not just one, but all three languages, and that learning them together might be more efficient than learning them separately, one by one? It sounds too good to be true, but hear me out. This counterintuitive idea might just be a lot more plausible than you think. Before we get into the specifics of this method, we need to talk briefly about the Romance languages. As you may already know, the Romance languages are a group of languages that include Spanish, Portuguese, French, and Italian. They are called the Romance languages not because the people who speak them are all heartthrobs, but because these languages are all descended from Latin, the language of the Romans. Romans, therefore, Romance. It has long been observed that these languages, due to their shared ancestry, all have a great deal in common with one another. And because they are so similar in terms of grammar and vocabulary, native speakers of one Romance language can sometimes understand speakers and texts of another Romance language without having previously studied that other Romance language. This mutual intelligibility is what inspired Edwin A. Notley to write Comparative Grammar of French, Italian, Spanish, and Portuguese Languages in 1868. Fast forward to the present day, and you have Mikhail Petrunin's Comparative Grammar of Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, and French, whose subtitle promises that you can learn and compare 4 languages simultaneously. These are not just 2 isolated crackpots writing 1.5 centuries apart from one another, by the way. There are also many other great books, such as The Seven Sieves and Frederick Bodmer's The Loom of Language, that build on the same fundamental insight, that a group of languages, highly similar to one another, can be learned more efficiently by examining the similarities and differences. By understanding these patterns of similarities and differences, you are essentially able to transfer your knowledge of one language to fill in your gaps in the others, so that knowledge of a few simple rules can replace many hours of rote memorization. As a point of comparison, let's imagine that you still learn the various languages, but separately instead of comparatively. With your knowledge of the various languages, you will probably still notice some of these patterns of similarities and differences in hindsight. However, you wouldn't be able to save time and effort by transferring knowledge of one language to another, simply because you wouldn't have figured out the patterns until you've already learned all the languages the hard way. Therefore, having these patterns of similarities and differences explicitly pointed out to you through the comparative method might feel like overkill in the beginning, but it is ultimately more efficient in the long run. At this point, you might want to start applying the comparative method to Chinese, Japanese, and Korean. But before you rush out to buy a comparative grammar of Chinese, Japanese, and Korean, I have to give you the bad news. There doesn't exist such a grammar, or at least not one in English that I could find. This is because, unlike the Romance languages, the grammars of Chinese, Japanese, and Korean are different enough that learning their grammars together may not be all that fruitful. That said, this is not a great setback because the hardest and most complained about part of Chinese, Japanese, and Korean is not their grammars, but rather their writing systems. Chinese is famous for its writing system of Hanzi, from which the Japanese system of kanji is derived. As for Korean, while the system of hanja is no longer the dominant writing system, its influence on vocabulary still remains. Notice that the 3 words Hanzi, kanji, and hanja are all based on the same characters and pronounced similarly, because they all originate from the same source. It is here, in the realm of writing and vocabulary, that the comparative approach is most fruitful. Based on a report by the Trilateral Cooperation Secretariat, there are 808 commonly used characters and 658 commonly used vocabulary words shared across all 3 languages. This means that by learning these shared characters and words while noting their slightly differing pronunciations and meanings, you can learn Chinese, Japanese, and Korean at the same time. And note that these are not limited to linguistic terminology or obscure expressions that nobody uses. They're commonly used characters and words that are indispensable for any speaker of the language. To me, this truly represents an exciting new way to go about learning East Asian languages, and with some modifications, it can even be extended to Cantonese and Vietnamese. That said, one major obstacle in using this method is the lack of English language resources. Based on my research, reference materials making use of the comparative method are available only if you are already fluent in Chinese, Japanese, or Korean, which means that the people most able to make use of those resources are the ones who need them the least. This gap is why I decided to start this YouTube channel. As a native Chinese and English speaker, as well as an intermediate learner of Japanese and Korean, I plan to translate and synthesize information from a variety of reference works and scholarly sources to develop useful learning resources. With time, I hope to produce a series of videos that cover all 808 shared characters, alongside their individual meanings and pronunciations. In my experience learning the Romance languages through this comparative method, I found that knowing a little bit of linguistic history goes a long way in making the information stick. Therefore, for the series on Chinese, Japanese, and Korean characters, I will also briefly cover how the shape of the characters evolved over time, as well as the shared medieval pronunciation from which the various modern pronunciations are derived. Overall, it is important to note that, ultimately, knowledge of these characters is not enough to make you proficient in any of the three languages. You still need to put in the work to study their individual grammars and to practice using each language. However, this method will help you develop a strong foundation for all three languages in an efficient manner, especially for your reading comprehension. If you know linguist Stephen Krashen's work on comprehensible input, you may be familiar with his claim that comprehensible input is the crucial and necessary ingredient for the acquisition of language. Briefly summarized, comprehensible input simply means that when learning, we should get lots of exposure to the language, input, that we are able to understand, comprehensible. As our language ability grows, we can then slowly move on to more difficult sentences. Understood within Krashen's framework, the comparative method is then a way to increase your comprehension of Chinese, Japanese, and Korean in as efficient a manner as possible. Learning this base set of 808 characters should be sufficient for you to make some sense of conversational Chinese, Japanese, and Korean. From this basis, all the movies, anime, and K-pop that you enjoy start to become comprehensible input that add meaningfully to your language learning. The knowledge you've acquired will also serve you greatly if you decide to transition to using formal textbooks or take language classes. There is a lot of information in this video, so don't worry if it feels a little overwhelming. This video is meant as an overview of the comparative method, and so I've quickly glossed over a number of topics that are deserving of more elaboration in their own right. If there is interest, I might make further videos in the future to explain these topics in more detail. I hope I've convinced you enough of the plausibility of this method that you will give it a try. I'm excited to start creating videos on the 808 shared characters, and I believe that they will prove an invaluable learning resource for you. Please do leave a comment if you have any questions or ideas, and please do like and subscribe if you've enjoyed this video. Thank you for tuning in, and I wish you all the best in your language learning journeys.